Good. Kyle, I too am glad to be able to speak in this legislation here today. And on Kate Ulshi, Breakers to go all done, the Business Committee and everybody involved in the House and the Bills Office and everybody who organised today's sitting and acquiesced and supported in any way, very, very important. And both ministers for coming here today and staying here, which is very important to us groups that are normally at the end. And we do appreciate that. The bill represents, in the government's own words, emergency legislation that will be enacted and aims to ensure there will be school places for more than 100 children with special education needs for the coming school year. However, despite this bill and the hype surrounding it, both responsible ministers, Foley and Madigan, were unable to guarantee that all children who require an appropriate school place that meets their assessed needs will have one in time for September. The Times headline on the subject matter encapsulates a grave shortcoming and points to yet another sloppy policy approach to a long-standing problem which is impacting on Ireland's most vulnerable children. And Shinrod O'Fossock, as I said, therefore, how could the Cabinet, in good conscience, last Tuesday, approve this bill 2022, which aims to compel schools to open special classes within 6 to 8 weeks, but will only provide places for some of the eligible children? How can the schools with inadequate resources be compelled to open up places, for example? While we will not stand in the way of the bill, our independent colleagues, we believe it's introduced steps to underline an utter lack of engagement by the department, coupled with lack of special educational resources provided to our schools. And as a person who has been on board of management of different schools, national schools, and indeed set up an INRA childcare unit, the Department of Education are so far behind the mark. And I want to salute, Principal Mr. Ryan in Clonmel, who set up 2 special needs classes in school, led the way in Clonmala, a town you know well, Minister Madigan, and that was at preschool level. But then we come to the national school, we have no place in such a town the size of that, biggest inland town. And thanks to the people, to the education family in Costa, I knew in my own village, and indeed the teaching staff and the whole school board, and indeed in Burntcourt and Court Duca, we set up units out there. But people have to travel 15, 20 miles. And also now in Clarehan, which is only just out the road from Clonmel, but none in the town. So issues like that have to be looked at. And I certainly believe in the old adage, Minister Madigan, that a spoonful of honey is better than a bucket or a barrel of vinegar. And your kind of rough, tough language during the week, naming and shaming isn't the way to go. There's lots of complex issues why schools, and as we heard this morning from deputies that know that area, those schools are offering different aspects of special education. But to be naming them and threatening them and giving their names to the press, I think is a retrograde step. Because in that go like Hela, we must bring people together and we must try and unite the communities. Because I can tell you from the point of view of a small rural schools, it is a daunting task. Thankfully, we're over that now. People understand the special needs requirements, not that they understand the minutiae of it, but they understand the need for them and have accepted them in the main. Maybe 10 years ago they didn't, and now they do. And that's very, very welcome. So we must work with the campaigners that are in this area as well. So as I said, the process can be so unwieldy, and the waiting list for children to be diagnosed, and a waiting list for, you name a plethora of different reasons for the most vulnerable children, and the frustration on the children first of all, and then and the parents and their extended siblings, and of course their Shan Maher and Shan Ahar, and the whole family and the wider community. If the diagnosis can be attained, and indeed a diagnosis reached that, it lessens the load. You know where you're going, you know what the requirements are, then at least you can focus your attention on the diagnosis that you've got, and so important. So, as I said, we must work with the schools, We must work with the CNOs. We need more of them, and we need to have a better engagement from your department. Take the school principal then and board of management. In our own case in Carshlan and indeed many other cases, the school principal then becomes, and my colleague here, a near principal, Privida, in a school would know much more than I do about this. They must then become builders, designers, architects, literally foremen on sites, and above all, Glake and go on, and the phone night and day to try and get builders, try and get engagement with the architects, try and get engagement sometimes with an extra site, extra space, and above all, bring that school community, bring that school teaching and the SNAs and teaching colleagues and the whole board with them on that. So it's a daunting task, and I salute them, each and every one of them, many who I don't know, for doing that, because it's not easy, it's not simple. But as I said, the architects need to step up to the plate here. The Department of Education need to loosen the shackles here, and where we have some excellent architects in Tipperary and Thurles, a team of them, writing letters into the department is like writing to Disneyland. At least you get a reply from Disneyland. There's no engagement. And then they might maybe 6 or 8 months later try and come back and say they didn't get the letter. All isn't well in the building section and design section in the department, and you need to sort that out, because those are public officials, have a job to do, and they should put the children with special needs first. All children are entitled under our constitution to equal to proper education. Yes, the existing process can take up to 18 months, but any solution must be inclusive and equal for all children, and this bill is not fully inclusive. The bill itself does not offer the hope that these families deserve. As I said, campaigners continue to argue that many, many more children than the maximum 100 covered in this bill are not included with the scope of the bill. The education provision in respect of children with special education needs Bill 2022 will allow the Minister to direct the school to open a special class within 6 to 8 weeks of receiving a report from the National Council for Special Education, NCSE, setting out in its opinion that there are insufficient school places in certain areas. Take for Carrick-on-Shore, for instance, a great town, no schools there. Children, I've raised this here, and it's so frustrating when you raise it here and you get a reply from the Taoiseach or Taoiseach or whoever sitting in for them. Oh, everything is being done and the Minister's dealing with this, but it's not. They have to travel 30 and 40 kilometres to get a place for school. Some of them may not have transport, as we've heard from other deputies, and even if they have, it's a daunting task and thorough for those Dini Yoga with special needs. It's awful, and there should be something near them. The current Section 37A process can take between 12 to 18 months to secure school place. And as I said, the shortened process set out in this bill allows 2 opportunities for schools and patrons and boards to make representation to the Minister. So, as I said, they will make the representation, and they make them to all Tuckty Dolly and Shanadori and Dina Marshin. But we must get engagement, and it was a two-way street. And if a community and the school board and principal and all the teachers decide to go this road at open arms, we must be welcomed, and we must support them and nurture them, not frustrate them and delay them and obfuscate and listen and make the process more difficult. Remember, it's the children with special needs. I hear so much nowadays about different types of education coming in, and we must be open and transparent and everything else. But if we can't deal with this first, the children that we have present who have the special needs and who are waiting for diagnosis, as I said, forever, and then when they have them, a challenge and a fight all the way. My late brother was a paediatrician of some renown, late Dr. Mattie McGrath. He fought like a tiger for these children with so many special needs, that they would get their rightful place. And on his deathbed, he asked me to get elected and try and further the cause of these particular challenged children. They're entitled to it. They deserve it, and they deserve to be treated equal and right and be treated properly. And I'm asking the board ministers to please look into their department officials and see. And just Marfucking score, if you'll allow me, Cahill, wonderful, he's an awfully man, a Coney, Tipperdon, Kevin Langton, a principal in school, celebrating his 50th birthday today as well. I want to wish him well, an excellent, hard-working, diligent motor.